Just like every year with the finals now all said and done and new NBA champions crowned, it's time we look at the top 30 players in the NBA. There may be some hot takes in here, but I'm going to do my best to justify why I've ranked everyone where I have. Now the 3 guys that didn't make the list that fell right outside of the 30 that I wanted to at least mention was Karl Anthony Towns, who would have been 33, Zion Williamson at 32, and Ben Simmons at 31. Now nothing against any of these guys. Well, I mean, Towns has been a disappointment, and well, Simmons is a meme at this point. Alright, nothing against Zion, but the people ahead of him were just slightly better this year and are at this current moment. Like number 30, which goes to Domantas Sabonis. Now Sabonis ranks a little higher than a guy like Zion, because this year we just saw Zion as a pure talent. He doesn't yet know how to translate his own game to getting opportunities for his teammates or leading his team to getting a win, which is something Sabonis has really started to put together this past year. He's taken that step as being a leader and being able to get his teammates involved, which is why he ranks slightly higher. Personally, I think he's just going to be a great second option in the NBA and always will be just that, but there's nothing wrong with that. Number 29 then goes to Julius Randle, and pretty much same for him too. He took that same step that Sabonis did, but actually was able to lead his team to some more wins and the playoffs. What he did there though was a different story, and his performance in the playoffs crushed his ranking more than anything. He had the opportunity to do something big this year, but it was pretty clearly a letdown. But there's still time for him. One step above him at 28 goes to Jamal Murray, and honestly, who knows how far Denver could have gone this year if he was fully healthy. I'm a huge fan of him, and I can't wait to see what the Nuggets do with him coming back this season. And he's a guy that always gets pushed back on these lists and has never made an all-star team, but I'm calling it for next year. I think next year he's gonna make the all-star team for the first time. Next up we have 27 with Jaylen Brown, and he actually was a first-time all-star this season and also took a huge step with his game. He's always been great defensively, but the rest of his game is drastically better than it was when he came into the league. He put up 6.6 a game on 34% from 3 as a rookie and 24.7 points a game on 40% from 3 this season. So I think it's safe to say that he's only going to get better next year too. At 26, it might be a little controversial because it always is, but I got Russell Westbrook in this spot. Listen, with all the teammates he's had over the years, Paul George, Melo, James Harden, and Bradley Beal, since Kevin Durant left him, he's only ever made it out of the first round once with James Harden. And even then, they only made it to the second round. And now he's expanding that list and is once again getting a chance to help his reputation in LA with LeBron and AD. But I'm betting we get similar results, which is why he only ranks here. Number 25 then goes to Rudy Gobert. Great defensive player, really makes up the whole defensive scheme for the Jazz and sets the tone for them on that end, while he's just getting better and better on offense. He's the type of player a guy like DeAndre Ayton should wish to be. I just want Rudy to be a little more dominant on offense though, so he can be a true second option to Donovan Mitchell. At 24 we have Zach LaVine, and I know he gets underrated because he's on the Bulls, but he truly is a dominant scorer and just as good as a guy like Devin Booker on offense. The only reason Booker's gonna rank higher is because of his most recent run and all. Zach just needs to get on a winning team quick, because he'd be dominant on any winning team, with him currently putting up 27 a game on 42% from 3. But then of course we had to rank Bradley Beal at 23, one step ahead of him, because he's also a great scorer on a bad team, but slightly ahead of him on that end, having averaged 30 over the past 2 years. LaVine's definitely the better shooter, and maybe in a couple of years when he's Beal's age, LaVine will deserve to surpass him in ranking, but for now he's just a step behind. And as for why Bradley ranks higher than Westbrook, even though they were on the same, I guess you could say, failed team, I mean, I guess it's up to speculation, but we've seen Russ on real championship contending level teams and what he was able to do on them. I just feel like in those same situations, Bradley would have done much better on a contender. 22, we got another shooting guard in Chris Middleton, and this one was tough. I really tried not to rank him too high just because he just won the title and it's what we saw most recently, but I guess this is where he has to belong. I don't really like ranking him over LaVine and Beal because I think they're both overall better players, but Chris came up huge as a second option on a championship team, so he proved that he can be that guy in the finals and ranks higher than them only because he was given the opportunity to come up big and was able to, while those guys haven't at least yet. But then right under him at 21 was Drew Holiday, and I feel a lot better about putting him this high than I did Middleton. Sure, Chris was the better scorer over the playoffs and the finals, but for how huge Drew came up defensively the whole time while also having big scoring games, he earned the spot. He really had moments in a couple games where he shut out Chris Paul, and he played Devin Booker great whenever he was called on to do so. Not even to mention he's never been on a winning team, and the one year he was moved to a contender, he was the biggest change that the Bucks made, and it led to them winning the title. Number 20, Klay Thompson. Klay's always been a second option, and it's been 2 seasons now since we've gotten to see him play with Steph. But let's not forget how good he is. I mean, this year without him, we got to see just how different and how much worse Golden State seemed. And I mean, with all 3 of their guys coming back this upcoming season, if they go back to being dominant and one of the best teams in the league, it'll show just how important and good he is as a player. 19, we got Jimmy Butler, and he was a weird one to rank. Sure, he makes all his teams better and everything, but he was terrible when they got swept against the Bucks. And I know I said it before, but Jimmy needs a Batman because he fits in a lot better as a Robin on any any team. If he could find that and get a guy like maybe Bradley Beal to play with in Miami, that would really turn things around. But he's still a top 20 player for sure, and this one bad year in the playoffs isn't the end of the world for him. For 18, it goes to Trae Young, and I don't know how people are going to feel about this one, on if it's too high of a ranking for Trae or not, but I feel good about ranking him here. I get why he caught some heat for playing how he did in the regular season, but seeing just how well his game really translated and how well he performed this entire postseason, Trae's a superstar and he's here to stay. He put up 29-9 and led the way for Atlanta. Even though he's not great defensively, he really is on his way to being a Steve Nash type of player. Sure, his shooting percentages could have been a lot better, but dude's only 22. At number 17, slightly ahead of him, we got Jason Tatum, and not too much to say about Jason, except he's getting more and more comfortable every year and adding more and more to every aspect of his game every season. He's definitely on his way to becoming a real superstar, and with the team Boston's got, expect him to be a contender at a real championship for a long time to come. 16, Paul George. Listen, Paul George did an excellent job of redeeming himself this year. He had huge games to finish off the Jazz without Leonard, then took the Suns to 6 games without him by averaging 28, 10, and 5. But let's not forget, he had a lot of bad postseasons too. Gotta see a little bit more from him for him to fully turn around his reputation. For now though, this was the Paul George we needed to always see, and if he continues to play like he did most recently, I could see him getting back into that top 10 conversation. But then the number 15 spot is taken by Donovan Mitchell, and talk about a guy adding more to his game and becoming a superstar. Sure, it was very disappointing how Utah went out after the season that they had, but I think had Mike Conley been healthy, they could have beat the Clippers even if Kawhi Leonard played every game. For Donovan personally though, his game took the next step this season, and I think going forward his name's always going to have to be brought in the conversation with the best of the best, even though he somehow didn't even make an All-NBA team this year. Coming in as the 14th best player in the NBA though, it has to go to Chris Paul. I say it every time, but he makes all his teams better, and he took Phoenix from 10th in the West last year to the NBA Finals this year. On top of that, we all know how good he is, so nothing else needs to be said. 13, one spot ahead of him is Kyrie Irving, and as a leader, CP's obviously 10 times better, but we put Irving slightly ahead because he's still in his prime right now, is capable of averaging 25 a game, and even though he made it there with LeBron, we saw what this man was able to do in those big moments. We saw how insanely well he was able to play on that championship squad in Cleveland, and it really is a shame that he got hurt when he did this year. Number 12, and now we're really starting to approach the top and the real biggest stars of the league today, now with Devin Booker. And that's how he played on the biggest stage, like a star. There's really not too much to say about him because he played every bit as good as we knew he could, but it is nice to know that he didn't choke and was actually able to. Then the 11th spot goes to Anthony Davis, and for me at least, he dropped a lot from the top 5 where he usually always ranks on most people's lists, for a couple reasons. For one, I mean, for as great as he is, even though he's dominant in every aspect of the game, and all these great things about him. I've mentioned it in a couple of previous videos, but I think the dude's a second option. And it's that, plus he's injury prone, and this year it finally caught up to him. He's had glass bones and paper skin his entire career, and in the second deep playoff run of his career, an injury came up when it mattered most, with him missing most of the season and pretty much the whole postseason. But now into the top 10 with Joel Embiid, and it was tricky to rank him ahead of AD, but AD's never been in real MVP talks the way that Embiid was this year. Some would also say that he's injury prone too, so they kind of cancel each other out in that aspect, but I've just loved what I've seen from him recently, and he's a lot more of a go-to first option kind of guy than AD is, at least in my opinion. Number 9, Luka Doncic. Love him or hate him, a lot of people love to hate on him, but he deserves to be in the top 10. He's done a ton so far in Dallas with a pretty limited team, pretty much by himself star-wise, because KP has not been that. The dude's been a star his entire life at basketball, and he's going to continue to do so his entire career. He still needs to get a lot better off the ball and getting teammates actually involved in the game, but he's young, he's got time. Number 8, we then have Damian Lillard, and I almost ranked Luka higher, but I couldn't rank him higher than Dame. I mean, I want to after they lost to Denver without Jamal Murray, but you know, we know how good Lillard is. We know the Blazers still need a lot of work, so we know that he gets a pass on this one. For number 7 though, Kawhi Leonard takes it here, and I had Kawhi a lot higher after his Raptors championship, but honestly he's fallen short of expectations ever since then, and it's been pretty disappointing. We haven't really heard much from him, and he hasn't really had any huge moments since he won that title. Don't get me wrong, he's still definitely a top 10 player and still deserves to rank at 7, but that's it. Coming in at the highest I've ever had him ranked, Nikola Jokic is an now the 6th best player in the league in my opinion. He won his MVP, teams can't stop him no matter how much they try, and he makes the Nuggets one of the best teams in the league every season. Then at 5 we have James Harden, and I wanted to rank him higher, but just couldn't, and you'll see why soon. But it would have been hard to argue if I did based on just how much he carried the Nets on his back with KD and Kyrie out a lot of this year. The biggest disappointment of the season was that every single team in the playoffs had a major injury to their team, but none of this postseason's injuries were more disappointing than James Harden having to pretty much miss the entire thing, because even though he played, he wasn't himself. At 4, it should be obvious that we had to give it to Giannis. Now let's get it straight. From the start, the Suns were a terrible matchup for Giannis. Before the series even started, it was clear that they had no one that was going to be able to stop him. Crowder was too small and Ayton was too slow, as we saw, and he dominated because of it. Had some legendary performances and really took his name to the next level by winning his championship, which was also a reason I had to rank him over Harden. Even though he won 1 though, don't let that make you think that he would rank higher than Steph Curry, who comes in at number 3. Still has 2 MVPs, still has 3 championships, has had a couple of terrible years as a team recently because of injuries, but he's still without a doubt a top 3 player in the NBA. Then number 2 goes to Kevin Durant, and I know, I want to rank him at 1. I truly think he deserves to be at number 1. That 49-point game against the Bucks and those other big moments say so too. But when I've not ranked LeBron at 1, I've ended up regretting it. I'm just going to keep it this way for now to play it safe, and we'll reevaluate next year if needed. I just don't know, man. Honestly, LeBron looked terrible after AD went out with that injury. He gave up and it was hard to watch. But like I said, we'll keep him here for now. Go ahead and comment any changes that you'd make to this list though, and let me know. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time.